Hey friends, welcome to the As You Go Network. My name is Joshua Brown, the pressure washing pastor, and today we have an incredible guest that's going to share their story on starting a side hustle and turning it into a full-blown thriving business inside the trades. And if you've been trying to figure out what type of business you want to start and scale, I want you to stick around for the very end. I'm going to invite you to a free live event where you can hear of 20 businesses that you can start today, and whether or not your story, your skills, and your proximity, and when we use the word proximity, your location makes sense for that business. Stick around to the very end and we'll get into it then. But for now, let's get into the show. Austin, welcome to Mission Plan 316.
I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, would you mind sharing with everybody the businesses that you have started and the businesses you have scaled up to today?
Well, if people have been watching some of my content, they're familiar with the power washing business. I've always been in the service business realm. Before this call, we were just talking about your son's kettle corn business. So going back when I was young, I was 16, I had a little landscaping business where I think everyone's done that. And so love home service. I've always had a passion for that and just how easy it is to start one. Come about, was it late 2018, early 2019, I stumbled into the pressure washing industry. A lot of people know that I was in the car business. Was in there for 2 years, and I stumbled across a YouTube video of a person power washing a driveway and how he made $300 doing so. And then I talk about this a lot on my channel, but I was like, man, this kid is doing this in an hour and I'm here all day, where I could maybe have that opportunity to sell a car in which maybe I'll get there. But some days were good days and some days were bad days. But that's kind of how I stumbled into the industry. And, one thing led to the next, and just, I'm sure we'll get into it in a second, but I fell into the power washing space. I've been doing that for the last 6 years, documented it pretty much almost the whole journey on YouTube so far. And it's been a blessing, man. It's given me the people I've met, the things that I've been able to do, where I've gone, just turned my life around. It's given me everything. So super grateful for this industry.
And then you also have a coaching business. Did you mention that?
Oh, right. So yeah, so the power washing business is kind of how I got started as far as my main entrepreneurial journey. But then I started, making videos on YouTube, which led into a coaching business on YouTube where, I kind of hand walk people through how to start and scale their pressure washing business, tutorials, weekly coaching, one-on-one, all on the cell phone stuff. And then more recently now, I've kind of been involved in my buddy's junk removal business, which is like really, really recently, where I've really kind of revamped their marketing, their branding, videography, the TikToks. I'm trying to really blow that up. So that's some exciting stuff that I'm working on right now.
Yeah, Austin, I appreciate you sharing that. Anybody that's looking for great content, make sure you check out. Is it called Austin Davis's? What do you call the YouTube channel?
Yeah, just my name, Austin Davis.
It's incredible. And the value that you give day in and day out is worth the journey, and then being a part of your coaching community. I really trust you as a leader and would encourage anybody to check your stuff out. So let's get into just the pressure washing conversation for a second, because if you're thinking about starting a pressure washing company, one of the most common things you're asking yourself is, what does the startup cost look like? What are the things that people are going to need to buy to start a pressure washing business? And what's the real startup cost?
Well, I guess it depends how you define startup cost, because this is kind of a polarizing topic in there. And I see both sides of it. Some people think you need all the equipment to start, and that's how you should start any business properly, with everything you need, right? There's people that think like you can't start a business unless you have everything, the best of the best of what you need. And then there's people out there that says, hey, look, I can just start with the basic stuff and that's how I'll get going. I know I wouldn't be here today if I had to go out there and pay for a $20,000 or $30,000 set of equipment. That just wasn't in my means at the time. And so I started with a local Home Depot, a 2.5 gallon, $300 power washer. That's how I got started. You still with me, Josh?
Yes, I'm here, and it's recorded live. And so anything that it doesn't catch on the video, it will end up catching it back up.
Oh, okay. You just kind of froze for a second. Yeah. So, I started with a $300 power washer, and that's kind of how I got going. So obviously there's a lot of equipment that encompasses the power washing industry, that once you kind of get built up, you're going to need all this extra stuff, which costs money. Like how I got started was going to Home Depot and getting the bare bones power washer. And I did very basic stuff, small back patios and walkways. Sometimes I didn't even do driveways because I didn't have the equipment yet, like a 100-yard or 50-yard driveway, whatever we have in Texas, especially like out here in rural outside of Austin. Yeah, I couldn't do it. So I was mainly tackling little stack patios for realtors. That's how I got going.
And yeah, and you've been a great example of someone who can literally just go to Home Depot, pick up an inexpensive startup. How much money would you say you spent in your first, let's say 3 months, just to get the equipment that you needed and maybe a website?
I'd say maybe $1,000. I mean, it's hard to say. It's been a while, but it's one of those things where whenever you prioritize something in life, you all of a sudden resources just start to come available. Everyone says, "I don't have the time for that," or "I don't have the money for that." But as soon as you get excited about something, all of a sudden here comes this time and money out of nowhere, right? And so when I bought that power washer, yeah, that was a big expense at the time. I was questioning if I was going to do that or not because it was expensive. But then I started knocked out my first job and I was like, holy crap, I got to change my priorities and get a budget down because I got to free up money. I got to find money. And all of a sudden I found this money and I found all this time to really pump into it because I was excited about it. So
Yeah, that's very good. All right. So we're saying literally you can start for $1,000. And then once you start cleaning, you're like, holy crap, I can make $600 on a job. And then once you realize that, you're like, okay, this is real. And that's where you start scaling from there or investing in different areas. Let me ask you this. Do you remember the first few customers that you grabbed, or first few jobs you had when you started your business?
totally. Yeah, I have lots of stories and my very first customer, I'd say I've had a little, like I said before, my little patio jobs, which is just using high pressure. I'm sure I wasn't doing anything right, but it looked definitely a lot better than where it did when I started it. But like my very first job, which like a lot of people know, was my big realtor. That was actually how I got going. Was I marketed a bunch of realtors. I come up with an idea. Man, I'm going to text every realtor in town. I'm going to find realtor signs for sale. I'm going to text them a picture of their house and say, hey, would you like a power wash before your next listing? Right. So anyway, I'm not sure how lead came about, but I got my hands on a job and it was a house wash driveway and limestone, all this stuff. I had no idea how to clean any of it. I just, if someone can just give me a shot, I'll figure it out. That was kind of my mindset back then, which is not what I recommend now. If someone's going in there, I would prefer you know what you're talking about before you go into a job. But anyway, yeah, he gave me a shot. I remember it was $700, which was like a lot of money back then, and it still is a lot of money now, but surely back then I was really excited. And I go in there and I just remember, at this time I barely even knew what downstreaming was or using chemicals or anything. I basically started by just high pressure power washing the limestone, and I was realizing that wasn't working. Anyway, I found myself going from the house to my truck at the end of the street, watching YouTube videos on how to clean what it was I was there to clean. Right. And the customers are inside. Right. And so they're in there, they're seeing me like walk around the house, kind of running around with my equipment, but then walking to my truck and sitting in my truck. And there was a couple of times where
Do you remember your first few clients or your favorite stories?
I was already kind of talking into that. Did you hear any of that? Or do you want me just to start over?
I heard, just pick up where you left off and then I'll just kind of like bring it all together.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So what I was doing is, first job, anything, what I was doing. Right. And so I was walking around the house, and then because I didn't know what I was doing, I went to this house and I thought I was just, power washing the limestone. That's how I was going to get it to come clean. And so that's what I was doing. And it wasn't working. And so I ended up going back to the truck several times throughout that whole day, trying to watch videos on how to clean what it was that I was actually cleaning. And a lot of the customers that were inside, they actually kept coming outside asking what I was doing. Like, hey, are you okay? Do you need a break? And all this stuff. Like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm just make up an excuse, whatever. And then, so it ended up taking 2 days because I went there, I started to clean, it wasn't working. And then I realized that I needed a downstream injector, which I could find locally. And I left the job, went and picked up one, came back, started using it. And literally, like all these things that you should know before you show up to a job, I was figuring it out at a job. Right. And it was completely embarrassing. Downstreamer wasn't cleaning the limestone, figured out I needed a pump up sprayer, would leave the job again, which I found out on the YouTube video from that job. At the job, go buy one, pool store, come back, try it. It was working. And I literally limped my way through that job. It turned out fantastic. They were happy, and I got that check. And it was when I saw that check, I was like, holy crap, like a huge learning moment. I learned so much in that day, but it was like, I looked at that check and I was like, man, I could really do this. Like, it was the best check I've ever gotten in my life. Like, not because it wasn't the most money. It was a lot of money, but it was like that thing where it's like your first dollar in business. It's like, this is possible. Like, I just need to learn. I just need to get better. And so, yeah.
I was in ministry for 22 years, vocational ministry. And I remember the first time I got paid for a job and I was done with the job. And that was an experience I had never experienced, because in ministry, after you do something, you're just doing it again the very next week or month or season. And it is such a rewarding experience to receive someone to say thank you, give you a 5-star review, and pay you. And then you're done. You get to leave.
Yeah.
When you look back on the most common mistakes of the individuals you coach and work with, is there a common thread of problems? I know there's 100 of them, but you've been coaching a ton of individuals on starting their own pressure washing company. What are the top 2 or 3 mistakes that you see people who start a business and then they end up failing? What are the things they didn't do to make it successful?
Well, I think a lot of times when you come into business, it's not just the act of trying to learn to perform the work, which is a learning curve in itself, be it whatever business you're doing, but you also have to learn business stuff. And a lot of it is handling money. When you go from a W-2 employee and the government is withholding taxes from you, that's actually a good thing, right? Because the government doesn't need to take that from you because they know they don't trust you, right? But when you go into this realm, it's completely different, right? So you need to learn how to manage money. You need to learn how to not to over leverage. And I think, like, over the last few years, one of the biggest things I've seen, and this is why I teach this certain way of growing in my program, is like the over leverage aspect, and how I just started in the beginning of this call with, hey, you don't need to go out there and start with all this stuff. Now, look, I see both ends of it. I can agree with the guy that says you need to go out there and get a loan and do all this other stuff. I can see how that's worked. No question about it. But like, for me, I know the average person, because of the fail rate in business is so high, we need to start slow and take baby steps. And so, yeah, the guys that I see that are failing, they go out there, they get excited because maybe they see a YouTube video or a Joshua Brown video or an Austin Davis video, and they go out there and they swipe the card for a big expense. Now they have debt on that. And then they go out there and they first business, they go out there and they start doing it. And of course, they're going to run into problems like everyone does. And one thing leads to the other. They have debt payments. They move too quick. And they over leverage themselves out. They're forced to sell, right, for pennies on the dollar, whatever you've bought. And it gets a sour taste in their mouth. Like, oh man, I tried it and it didn't work. Well, that's not the way you should have gone about it. Right. So I see that people are just spending money that they don't have. Usually it's spending money that they don't have. So there's that. Also, like, the education piece of it, I think you need to go out there and just really be a sponge and get information. Yeah, problems. I mean, I would say that it's just people need to start slow and realize that this is a 1 to 2 year plan, a 3 to 5 year plan, where if you just work it correctly, unless you're not doing what you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis, this can and will work. It's just they think that things are supposed to happen very, very quickly, and that's just not how it works. Things are going to take time, and the only way you can shoot yourself in the foot is if you over leverage yourself, I think.
Do you have any successful stories of dudes that you've coached and they started and scaled a business? And then this is really the question here. What are the characteristics of a dude who ends up, or a lady that ends up starting and crushing it? Are there certain behaviors where you're like, hey, if you're this type of individual, you are more likely to be successful?
Totally. Tenacity, the willingness to eat crap on a day-to-day basis and feel good about doing it, and then wake up the next morning and do it again. There's so much competition out there, right? And so in order for you to get through that, like the first year and a half, it's going to suck. And that first year and a half, I mean, most businesses, startups, they fail within a year and a half, right? And so in order to get past that, you have to do a lot of stuff that a lot of people are not comfortable wanting to do. I remember I have a YouTube video when I first got started. One of my first couple of videos was a 45-minute video, and I went and door knocked this really exclusive neighborhood. And I was talking through little PA things like the little Nest cameras, and I had people tell me like, get off my property, all this stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go to the next one. And so it's like a 45-minute video of me getting shut down. I didn't close a single one, but it was me. I door knocked a lot. And so you just saw that's what people have to do. That was actually the one and the only time I ever door knocked. I switched my marketing plan after that. But dude, they just do the stuff that they don't want to do, and they do it every single day, and they're consistent with it. One of the things I say in my program is like, you get a marketing plan and you get a plan of attack, and then you need to schedule. Every day has to have an assignment, kind of like Dave Ramsey, like give every dollar an assignment. You need to give every day an assignment. And if you don't have that scheduled out, then there's no business plan here. Like you need it. Like Monday we're gonna do this. Tuesday we're gonna do this, and schedule your free time. Get eyeballs on your business, man. That's what your competitors are doing, right? So.
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said someone that can get up day in, day out and take a punch to the face or
right.
Kick to the throat, because that really is what it looks like to start and scale a business that you've never done before. That's where I would argue that it's not necessarily, how much money you spend. It's what type of personality you have, and do you have the right market?
Mm-hmm.
Opening a fishing business in a place that doesn't have any fish doesn't make a lot of sense. Same thing with pressure washing. It's not how much you spend. If there's a market, it's really about your behaviors day in and day out. And so when you get into behaviors, there's a question I'm curious about. Have you coached any guys on being just neighborhood or county specific and just told them, hey, I just want you to focus on knocking out this territory, and then don't worry about going outside of it, to keep your cogs low and just take over that neighborhood or that county or that territory? Have you ever coached anybody on that?
Totally. I'm a big fan of that. Farming a certain area first, rather than, especially if you're in a big city, it's completely unrealistic if you live in, I don't know, Atlanta, and you're going to go put 100-yard signs out, and you think the best idea would be to go all over the circle of Atlanta. You need to just take those 100 signs and then put them in a very condensed area. That way, a lot of people see those signs day in and day out, versus if you spread them all out, chances are people are going to see it one time and never see it again. And so we're talking about branding and just trying to cultivate a community of certain people that are able to see your stuff. I'm a big fan of doing that. Especially if you're in a big city, you need to pick an area and farm that area. Like everyone in South Austin knows these guys. And I'm sure that's the case everywhere. Now, I'm sure if you're in a small rural area, I have some guys and it is tough in my coaching group, just because of the location. They live on a farm to market road that's a corner, and Paris, Texas, right? And no one knows, right? Yeah, it's going to be tough. And so that's the other thing. That's the beautiful thing about exterior cleaning. It's not just residential. And that's the other thing about YouTube, residential, luxury home residential, when we're doing $4,000 jobs, that's not all about the industry. Like there's commercial, there's gas stations, there's kitchen hood vent cleaning, which is what we started picking up. There's gutter cleaning. The needs in this industry are so vast and so wide. It goes commercial, it goes residential. Find a little niche in the market. Restaurant dumpster pads, which even your small farm to market county roads have restaurants, and they have a need for it too. So that's the beautiful thing about the business. Even though the market isn't as, you can find little markets in small markets for little things.
Hey, let's get real for a second and ask the question, what's the worst part of starting and scaling a pressure washing business? And don't hold back.
The worst part about starting and scaling a pressure washing business. I mean, I think some people think that it's not hard work, and it's very hard work. I think I would equivalent this to skilled labor, especially when it comes into the chemicals and stuff. I mean, look, you have the hard work as far as the hard part about starting a pressure washing business. The fact that it is a pressure washing business, and you're starting, you got to be the one out there doing this. And yeah, you're getting sprayed in the face with chemicals, all the heat. I mean, it can be really, really tough. And, you wear your safety gear, and even then it's still tough. But then the other part of just starting and scaling a business that we were talking about, it's discouraging. You go through days where you don't have nothing, and then it's tough, dude. It can mess with your emotions. So many things, man.
Hey, let me ask you this. Have you ever had equipment problems?
Totally. We have equipment problems right now.
Yeah, same. And it's like we got
Oh,
14, 15 pressure washers, and it's like all of them are going down. I think that's the thing that people don't realize is that you spend the money on the equipment, and it can be the cheap little thing and the rope breaks when you're pulling it. It's because it's wet, or all the down injectors. There's so much that in the equipment area, I feel like that's one of the most challenging parts, not getting frustrated when your roof pump won't pull soap anymore.
well, now what we've done, the thing with the industry, because now the whole industry is like, you need to have the best of the best, everything electronic on push buttons and all this crazy crap, like hoses going galore all around your stuff. That's great for an owner operator that wants to baby their equipment and tuck it in bed at night and wipe it off and all this stuff to their equipment to make it pristine. But when you start getting employees, these guys are just not going to take care of it as good as you are. Right. And so now we've switched our whole thing. We used to have all those skids. We ripped out all the electronics. We ripped out the fancy stuff. And now we run a very robust operation where if something breaks, it is a very easy fix. Like we run 12-volt pumps. We don't use AR 45s anymore. We don't use blend manifolds hardly anymore, just because we eliminate everything that could either leak, break, or pop. Right. We use downstream injectors. We use pump up sprayers. We pump up spray almost every house, at least 25% of the house, just because it's a $20 pump up sprayer and we can go around and spray it and be fine. And so we've kind of adjusted that over the years and stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Have you ever had the air compressors that hook up to those little pumps for roof pumps?
Yeah.
You ever have the ones that you plug into like a generator
Yep.
and it's going
Yep.
spend $4,000 or $5,000 on these setups, and we do the same thing. We're down to the 12-volt, and it's like just get a couple, throw them on the truck, and if they go down, click in, click out, and get it done.
Yep.
Yeah, so your point, you're spot on. But when you start a business, you don't know all the equipment you need and what you don't need. So you end up buying everything that someone says, this thing will do it faster and better and blah, blah, blah. Hey, do you have something you want to share there?
So when I was a solo operator, I lived and breathed everything. Still do to a certain degree, but I'm certainly not out in the field as much as I used to be. But when I was out in the field, I had all that fancy stuff and I really liked it. And I was able to get done really, really quick. It's just the problem is, like, if you're not out there running it and you got guys doing it, they're not incentivized to stay late till midnight and unscrew everything and put it back together like an owner operator is. They're just not going to do that. And if you're busy doing bids, you can't get to some of this equipment. And then lo and behold, you get to the shop a week later to look at some of the stuff and you didn't know that something was leaking for a week. And maybe the guys forgot to tell you. All kinds of things can happen. But so we kind of got rid of all that stuff. And now we're very robust cleaning rigs.
Hey, final question for today. Would you recommend this, and why or why not, this being a pressure washing business for someone to start?
Would I recommend the power washing industry to someone looking to start? Or
knowing what you know now, there's 20 different trades that someone could literally start. Would you recommend the pressure washing business for someone to start that's looking to start a side hustle?
Yes, I would recommend the pressure washing business for a couple reasons. It's a step above landscaping in a sense where you can charge a lot more than landscaping and there's not as much competition as landscaping. Several problems with landscape. That's not what we're talking about. As far as pressure washing, there's so many. The one part I love about it is there's just so many little niches within the space that you could really focus on. And a lot of it is in high demand. Everyone needs to get their gutters cleaned. Otherwise, those won't be functioning properly. A lot of people love their windows clean. Roof cleaning has some good stuff as far as getting the stains off the roof. There's some insurance claims that are happening, especially if you're in the Northeast. Insurers are making people clean the roofs because of the moss problems. So there's several things that have demand in there. And then, of course, all the restaurants, the commercial. So in most cases, you'll always be able to find a market for it in whatever area you're at. And you can charge a lot. The margins are very, very good, especially if you're a solo operator. I mean, you can go out there and make bank, I would say, if you get it up and running. I think it's a great business. Yeah.
If you didn't start the pressure washing business, what business, if you could do it all over again, would you start and scale?
I have no idea. Knowing what I know now, if this didn't happen, and I just might do it all over again. Look, I love the power washing business. It has given me everything. The people I've met and the blessings. It's just like it's taken Never would I have thought this power. So I'm in debt to the business. So I would do it all over again, and I would probably do it 5 more times. That's how much I love the business. But I mean, other than that, the problem is like these other service businesses like HVAC, how much learning and how much tools and, and all that does it take to get in that it's so hard for a new guy to come in there and with nothing and get going. It's kind of hard as far as like the service business, when you think about these service business, like what does it actually take to go out there and get running? The problem with landscaping companies is, man, you get going and then you're just going to get beat by a guy who's going to charge like $50 because they're scaled out and they can just do that. Whereas power washing is just like, yeah, there's competition, but there's not as much of it. You can always go in there and find a customer. One thing I like about it as far as like landscaping is like someone can look at their yard and like, oh man, you're going to charge me $100 for that yard. It seems like that's a lot of money, but with pressure washing, I think it's understood that it's a bit higher. It's a higher service. It's a luxury service, getting your house professionally clean on the exterior, especially like with roof cleaning. So we don't really run into, at least I don't, and I understand I'm in a good market, but like they understand it's going to cost a lot of money. I know some markets in Florida like that was like, oh man, that's a lot of money. So it just depends where you are, but
Austin, you've been an incredible guest. Thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom and suggestions on Mission Plan 316, and we hope to see you in the future.
Hey, I really appreciate you having me on, Joshua. Always a pleasure.
As promised, that was an incredible interview on a dude who started a side hustle and scaled it into a full-size business in the trades, where he's not only able to provide for himself, he's also able to provide for others. And as promised, I want to invite you to the top 20 trades that you can start inside of your city. Simply go to asyougo.network, sign in, and then sign up for Start and Scale a Side Hustle seminar. It's really more like a live event, but we'll end up having a conversation and I'll show you what it takes to start and scale a